Welcome to Chicago Jewish Cafe. Today we have a guest. We'll find out who he is and what he thinks of himself. But he wrote this book. His name is David Dvorkin, and the book is Once a Jew, Always a Jew, with a question mark. And I had this book now. I purchased it several years ago, and I've been reading here and there and trying to understand what it's all about. But now, luckily, we have the author of this book, so he can tell us what this book is all about. David, welcome. Tell us, please, what your book is all about.
Well, I consider myself an ex-Jew. That is, I was a Jew, but I became an atheist. And a lot of people in a similar situation argue with themselves and each other about what they really are. Are they atheist Jews? Are they agnostic Jews? Are they ethnic Jews? Are they secular Jews? Are they still Jews in some sense, even though they don't believe in any part of the religion at all? And excuse me, what I argue in this book is that, especially in America and probably most other Western countries, being a Jew means observing the religion. And if you're not observing the religion, then it has no meaning. You're not a Jew, you're an ex-Jew. There's no, I'm no different from my neighbors next door, my Christian and other, whatever they are, neighbors, in terms of how I dress, the music I listen to, the food I eat, my politics, etc. There's nothing specifically that identifies me. People say it's a race, but that race has no meaning. Biologists will say race has no biological meaning. It's a social construct. Others will say it's an ethnic group. Well, as I was just saying, I am not ethnically part of any kind of community. And there are some who are. There are some ex-Jews or atheist Jews who still observe various festivals, and especially Hanukkah in America, which has become the Jewish Christmas. Or sometimes they might go to a synagogue service, especially if they're visiting their family and they feel pressured to. But internally inside, there's nothing about them that makes them a Jew as opposed to anyone else. And so my argument in this book is that the dictum that once a Jew, always a Jew really has no meaning, no meaning in any real sense. And people like me are ex-Jews, not Jews in any sense.
Ex-Jews. So I'll call you ex-Jew.
Yes.
Do you mind it?
I don't mind it. I'm an atheist. Okay. I was a Jew.
But I have to say this, David, that this type of thinking cannot be done in a country, in society of atheists. Soviet Union, where I'm from, was an atheistic society.
In theory, anyway.
Religion was persecuted. To be a Jew was written in your passport, internal passport. So a person like you, who was born in England, in Christian societies, or society with majority of Christians, he has this option to think that way, but it's very local option. It's very provincial option.
Yeah.
You would not be able to do it either in China or Soviet Union. Now, Soviet Union disappeared, and maybe now you could think this way, in Russia, the way it is now. But I would imagine that vast majority of people would tell you, no, David, think whatever you like, but we think that you're a Jew.
Sure, you're probably right. But then Russia always had, even when it was the Soviet Union, it was still a very anti-Semitic society. It may have been an atheist society, but there was an awful lot of anti-Semitism.
It had nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It had to do with the fact that when you do not have within a culture, a broader culture, understanding of a Jew as a member of a religious group, your argument falls flat. In Soviet Union, a Jew was not a religion. all the way in the beginning, when there was Tsarist Russia, a Jew was a religion, but also a member of an ethnic group in Tsarist Russia. For example, when you would convert from to a Russian Orthodoxy, you would not be allowed to change your last name. That is, Russian state wanted you to become a Russian Christian, Russian Orthodox. But when you did, for example, like Arthur Rubinstein, a famous composer, they would not allow him to change his last name to Dvorkin or Dvorkovich or Dvorkovian or whatever else you want. He'd be Dvorkstein or whatever else, you'd be. In this particular case, different. So your thinking is localized. It's not general. And I know in your book you mentioned talking about Nazis. Nazis made me do it. But it's not only Nazis. I say in the Soviet Union, they would make you do it too. Was your father and mother Jewish?
Yes.
So in your passport in the Soviet Union would be a Jew.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and in my book, I do specifically say that I'm really mainly talking about America and similar countries. They're not just the Soviet Union. I mean, Saudi Arabia, if I sit in Saudi Arabia, well, that's a bad example. You wouldn't want to be an atheist in Saudi Arabia either. But there are many countries where who would reject my reasoning, my argument. But I'm not talking about those countries. I'm talking about.
But it is accepted in these countries, like Christian countries or largely Christian countries, only because people who are Christians would like to see Jews as members of religious grouping.
Mm-hmm. But
not because of anything else.
But I'm talking about how I see myself and how I'm arguing that other Jews like me in America logically should see themselves. And as I say in the book, sure, there are Nazis and there are all kinds of people who have all these racist ideas and put you in a slot in a certain category because of your birth. Why should I see myself through their eyes? Why should I define myself the way they define me with their bizarre racial ideas?
David, I'm with you. If you do not want to see yourself as a Jew, I say, don't see yourself as a Jew. If you want to see yourself as Martian, I say, go ahead and see yourself as Martian. See yourself any way you like to see. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is this. Maybe 5 or 8 years ago, I spoke to a guy by the name of Sergio Della Pergola. He is a professor at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and he is the leading demographer of Jews. So I asked him, Sergio, how many Jews there are in the world? So he says, well, according to his estimate, at that time was 14.5 million. Mm-hmm. And he goes by halachic definition of who is a Jew. So it's 14.5 million. That is, they say by mother.
Yeah.
By father, his estimate was 21.5 million. And what is interesting about this definition of by mother, 2 million of them don't consider themselves Jews no more. So out of 14.5 million that he counted as Jews, 2 million is the market for your book.
Well, that's a good market. But see, according to that definition, if you go by the father, then my
what
son,
is it? What is it?
I said that's a good market, but 2 million would be a good market for a book. But if you let's look at his definition.
But they're not buying your book, right?
Apparently not. No,
because they decided, as long as we don't want to be Jews, we don't want to even read a book about Jews.
No, there are these others who are in the shadowy area that I'm aiming my book at. The ones who aren't sure what to call themselves. And I have these discussions online with other people like me, and they're trying to decide, what am I? Am I an ethnic Jew, a secular Jew, etc. And I was getting this argument with them. No, you're an ex-Jew, and that's why I wrote this book. Is aimed at people like that. The definition of by the adding in the father, according to that definition, my son would be a Jew. His mother is an atheist who was raised Catholic.
Well, in my book, your son is 100% Jewish. This is we're not going to get into it, conversation with you, but one of the reasons that I'm having this conversation with you is because we're going to have many more conversations like this, because the issue of who is a Jew, I mean, from the time of Abraham until today, it was always probably the most important question. But in my eyes, your son is 100% Jewish. Of course, you may disagree because you're an ex-Jew, so I do not know how in your little subset of non-religious thinking, your son is considered. But in my book, your son is 100% Jewish. Why? Because he is an offspring of a Jewish father.
And yet, in reality, he's completely an atheist with no interest in.
Of course, he loves his father and he wants to be like you. Unfortunately, he does not want to probably fly to the moon or to Mars. Does he?
He would, yeah.
He would, because I would have. This is my dream. Andromeda. All my life, since about 6 or 7 years of age, I remember I was standing on the street and was looking at the sky, and I asked, there was some guy there older, maybe 3-4 years older. I asked, what is the closest star to us? And I hear the answer, Andromeda. And from that time, this Andromeda, and I say, how far is to Andromeda? And the guy says, about 3 light years. I was 6 or 7. I did not understand what is light years or whatever it is, but I was thinking 3 years. That is doable. I think I can make to Andromeda. Many years passed, few years ago, being not very bright person that I am, about maybe 3-4 years ago, I decided, let me take a look at Wikipedia. Where is Andromeda?
You find out that it's actually the Andromeda Nebula, and
it's 3 million light years away.
He was confusing. Can you believe it? Centauri. Yeah,
that was depressing.
But we don't have to go that far. There's Alpha Centauri. That's 4 light years away. And that might have planets. We don't know.
So, but now you stopped working with NASA, right? And you started to work writing books.
Well, I was writing books at the same time. Yeah.
How many books have you written now?
30 so far. 30 published so far. Yeah.
30 books. This is amazing. When I try to write, it takes me days just to sit down and put anything on paper. But you just write. It's a gift. In any case, let's get back to your book, because your book is interesting in many ways. As I said, there's about, out of 14.5 million, 2 million don't consider themselves to be Jewish now, and out of those 2 million, I do not know how many converted to Christianity or maybe Islam or Buddhism, and how many, just like you, are ex-Jews. They have no religion, they got intermarried, which, by the way, while I had recognized your son as 100% Jewish, I don't recognize your marriage as validly Jewish under Jewish law.
Sure.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, well, my parents would have agreed with you when they were alive, but they had a lot of trouble accepting it.
So, and and on the other side, out of those 7 million or something like this, who are not counted among these 14.5 million, by Della Pergola, of them, 60%, that is more than 4.2, 4.5 million, consider themselves Jewish. So they're not your market. Your market is maybe the other 2.5 million there, and maybe portion of this there. And this is what we're going to try to do. We're going to put a link to Amazon, under this video.
Thank you.
To your book, so other people would have an ability to read this book and think about what is right and what is wrong. In any case, so the your book, I see divided. Besides introduction, there's the first chapter, Dirty Jews, then My Yiddish Mama, the Jewish race. You talk about all these topics, then matzah balls, just I guess it's cultural, Judaism. Shiny lights, not clear what it is. What is shiny lights?
Oh, that's all about the American version of Hanukkah and what a distortion it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then Nazis made me do it. You see, as I said, it's not only Nazis make you do it. In China, they would make you do it. In Japan, they would make you do it. In Soviet Union, they would make you do it.
Well, that specifically was because I have run into this argument before from people who are secular Jews, and they will say, I never considered myself a Jew, but then I visited the Holocaust Museum or something like that, and I realized that in the eyes of the Nazis, I'm a Jew, and therefore I'm a Jew too. So they're really saying that they consider themselves Jews because the Nazis would have considered them Jews instead of defining themselves.
A little shock to a nervous system can wake up anybody.
Well, they may, but it makes no logical sense to me. I mean, I certainly grew up with all the Nazi stuff. My mother lost a lot of her family, and my mother's born in Lithuania, and she lost a lot of her family there. And my father lost them. But his parents were from Russia, and he lost relatives as well. And so I certainly grew up surrounded by all of this. I was born during the war and in England, during the Blitz. So I grew up with all this in the background. I understand the feeling, and I understand it's a shock, say, to an American Jew who doesn't have a direct connection with it until suddenly they perhaps visit a death camp or a Holocaust museum, and it's just makes no sense to me. It's just not logical at all.
And for me, it was all the other way around. So I was born in the Soviet Union. I was completely atheist. I started an organization, 3-member organization. In the Soviet Union, you could not start an organization because any organization, any attempt, any speaking out was prosecutable offense in a big way. But when I was 16, I started in my school a group called Communist Prometheus. So you appreciate that I was completely atheist. I was Marxist, and I raised with it. The organization was created in order to demand the removal of the Article 6 from the Soviet Constitution. Article 6 was the key article that gave to Communist Party the leading role in all social, economic, and political organizations in the Soviet Union. Now, as a result, I was placed in mental hospital, not once, many times, given insulin shocks and then discipline shots and all kinds, and then finally expelled from the Soviet Union the first time in 74. When I saw that you stopped working for NASA in 74, I was thinking, oh my God, I would have replaced them there, because I wanted to do those things. But on the other hand, once in exile, my thinking was completely different. I dropped thinking about space and everything else. I just wanted to destroy this one-party dictatorship. But in any case, I was completely atheist. If somebody would tell me, do you believe in God? I would say, what do you mean by God? I would not even deign to respond because for me, God did not exist until 1989, when I ended up in Italy, Ladispoli, and I saw there a big problem of about America changed its policy with regard to Soviet Jews and blocked about 5,000 Soviet Jews from who were stateless, without passports, without anything, from entering the United States. So, and I led 1,500 of them on march in front of American embassy on Via Veneta in Rome, and that was a shock to my system. I have never seen so many Jews in one place. And when I came back to Chicago, something happened to me. I was really just twisting on the floor from internal pain. I could not accept the idea that to be a Jew is to be a person who believes in God. Just couldn't accept it. But finally, I did accept it. Things twisted and turned and turned and turned. And then I spent 6 years learning Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, and translating Torah into Russian. Crazy guy, you see. And now, when I'm looking at you, that your process was different. Your father was, you say, an Orthodox rabbi, right?
Right.
Now, and then it was in England, right?
Well, South Africa is what I mostly remember. But we moved after the war. We moved to South Africa. I was 3
How
years.
old were you when you moved to South Africa?
I was 3 years old.
2 years old. So
Three.
3 years.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what is your country? What is your homeland?
Yeah, that's hard to say. It's really America legally. Of course, I've been in this country since I was a teenager, but I still have South African influences in me, I suppose, but mostly American, really, more than
How long
anything.
time you lived in South Africa?
It was a total of about 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, formative years, though. Yeah.
And your father was their Orthodox rabbi.
Yeah.
So I guess because, my understanding of the way Orthodox Jews are in South Africa, it's similar to other places where Orthodox Jews are. That is very clannish, very enclosed. But in South Africa, maybe even more so, no?
No, actually. And religiously, it was really more like the conservative movement here. It wasn't the extremely Orthodox. And he was always in small towns. My whole life he was a rabbi in small towns where there were very few Jews, and we didn't hang out together. I was always surrounded by non-Jews. All my friends were non-Jews and so on.
So they converted you. They made you into ex-Jew. You could not get back into it, huh?
No, I considered myself a Jew in those days, very much so. One time my father was sure I was going to be a rabbi too. No, I converted myself. It wasn't outside influences. That's what Jewish parents always think, of course. It must be outside influences. But no, it was science, really. I more and more I found all the religious learning increasingly uninteresting and constricting and suffocating, and science was the universe. I mean, the stars, the universe, astronomy.
Also, it gave you freedom to be with anybody, anytime, as you may like it.
Yes.
So there was no need, to do Shabbat.
Well, yeah.
Separate pork from cheese.
Well, I had to do all that, of course, because until I went away to college in Indiana, of course, I had to do all that because that's the way it was at home, and because we're in a small town, it was always impressed upon me that every eye was upon me, and I couldn't do anything that would reflect badly on my father. So it wasn't until I went a few hundred miles away to college that I could really become myself. So,
do you have brothers or sisters?
Two sisters, quite a bit older than me.
Are they also ex-Jews?
They are, well, they're both dead now, actually, but yes, they were both atheists as well. I don't think they did not consider themselves ex-Jews. They would have called themselves secular Jews, probably.
Was your father, did your father become an atheist?
Oh, no, heavens, no, far from it. No, he was
So all of his 3 kids were a great disappointment to your father.
Well, that's very common with preachers' kids in every religion.
What is it?
That's very common with preachers' kids in every religion, right?
Oh my
Preacher's
God.
kid either becomes a preacher or goes the other direction.
Um, let's talk a little bit about this concept. Once a Jew, no longer a Jew.
Mhm.
Now, you, first of all, I have to say that your book is very well written.
Thank you.
I liked it. You say that there's two poles from which we can look at this. Once a Jew, always a Jew. One is Jewish Orthodox pole, and another is a point of view of anti-Semites. You know, that they say that no matter what you do, you're still dirty Jew. You know, you're still kike or whatever it is. But the Orthodox say, you know, once a Jew, always a Jew. Although there's some different modifications, you know, that. But for example, most of Orthodox in Israel disagree with the part of law of return, which denies the Jewishness of a person who became a convert to another religion.
Mhm.
And many Orthodox in Israel disagree with it. We'll see what it is. I personally say a person does not want to be a Jew. The road is open. Please leave us. You know, go and find yourself a better place. You know, as long as you don't turn around and start throwing stones at our people. If you leave, you know, and you still understand that, you know, life is life and Jews have the right to be Jews, you know, the way we are, I have no problems. But many Jews who stop being Jews become fervently anti-Semitic. They make themselves available to the worst type of uh, 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 Jewish enemies. I mean, it was the case in Russia, it was the case in Germany, it was the case in many other places. In the United States, I see that many atheist Jews, you know, very much in favor of Palestinians, you know, and against Israel. In any case, but I want to ask you about, because you've looked at it, when you looked at this once a Jew, always a Jew proposition from a Jewish perspective, what halachically valid sources did you come across on that point?
I I didn't. I mean, I didn't need to look anywhere because I was brought up with that concept. It was always impressed on me. You know, if you're born a Jew from a Jewish mother, because in my background it was only the mother, uh, matrilineal. You know, nothing. A non-Jewish father, a child of a non-Jewish father, was not considered a Jew in my
Right.
family.
For the last 1800 years or
Yeah,
so, that was
yeah,
the case. But you
yeah.
did not look at the sources, right?
No, no, I didn't see that was relevant. The source isn't relevant. It's how it's applied in modern times.
Okay. In any case, and from the point of view of anti-Semites, you don't really even need to be a Jew in order to be a Jew. And if you are a Jew that they don't like,
Yeah, yeah,
no matter what you do,
sure, yeah. But
they're,
they're nuts. They're crazy. I mean, I can't. You know, they're crazy people all over the place. They're people
they're
who really
crazy.
don't like.
They organize themselves into states. They organize themselves into huge armies. They
Oh, they're dangerous.
organize,
They're very dangerous. Sure. They're very dangerous, of course, but that doesn't make them any less irrational. They're a danger, but they're still irrational. So they don't affect my. They don't change my thinking. Now, I may, of course, if they were to somehow take over America, I would be in danger, and I would have to try to save myself and my family. But that doesn't mean that I have to change my view of myself. That's all.
if somebody would ask, why would who is the person your book was written for? Who did you write the book for?
For people who call themselves atheist Jews, secular Jews, and all those various other little categories, but they are uneasy with it. I don't mean people who are comfortable in that, but people who don't really know for sure what they are, and they're calling themselves atheist Jew, secular Jew, etc., because they don't want to confront the issue. What am I really? They don't want to feel guilty. They don't want to disappoint their mother, their Yiddish mama, by calling themselves not saying they're no longer a Jew. I mean, my mother used to say to me, "Don't call yourself an atheist. Just say you're a non-practicing Jew." You know, she wouldn't have minded if I'd eaten pork and all the rest of it, as long as I still called myself a Jew. And I told her that would just be dishonest. And I want to confront confront is the wrong word. I want to talk to these people who are in that position and say, examine yourself, ask yourself, what are you really? What does it mean to be a Jew? In what sense are you a Jew? Or as I said at the beginning, there's both the anti-Semite who says once a Jew, always a Jew, and the Jew who says once a Jew, always a Jew. They are both saying that there's some fundamental, ineradicable something in the person that makes them a Jew, no matter how they live their lives, what they do from day to day. And I'm asking, what is that? Ask yourself, what is that? And in the book, I conclude that it's, at least in the West, it is religion, and that's it. And if you're not religious, don't be honest with yourself. Just be honest with yourself. Don't call yourself a Jew anymore if you're not religious.
Well, I'm not local. I'm not from the West. I'm
sure.
more from the East, and my approach to these topics is more like a globalist, universalist. And when I think of myself as a Jew, I think of myself as a Jew from a different perspective than you do. But I have to say that I'm going to, in my mind, I'm going to expand the market for your book. Because even people who do believe in God, who do consider themselves Jews, the way I do, would do themselves a favor to read a book like this and to test their own ideas of who they are.
Well, it's important to at least think about these things, not just accept them without thinking about them.
I think so. It's very important.
Yeah.
You took time to write it. You took time, and it's good thing for people, that are interested in who they are and what's going on in the world, to read a book like this in order to be able to understand themselves and others.
Yeah, thank you.
In any case, David, I want to thank you very, very much for stopping by, and I hope it's not going to be the last time. Hopefully, we're going to talk again. As they say in China, sei gesund.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.